19 after 7, on to this now. 16.3 billion rand in the red. Is the city of Joburg carrying the load for City Power's woes? And are residents paying double for those who won't settle their bills? And why is it that reports were allegedly kept secret? And is this utility a going concern? We did invite the mayor of the city of Johannesburg to take this interview because I think he most appropriately can answer some of these questions. He refused to come on to the show, but instead the CEO of City Power, Tshifularo Mashava, joins us now. Always a pleasure to have you on the show, and thank you for your time this morning.
Good morning to you and to your listeners.
All right, we're talking because of allegations that have surfaced. Let's start with the amounts. 16.3 billion rand as a negative balance. Is that something that squares up with your information?
Definitely. So the 16 billion that we're talking about would be the overdraft that City Power currently has.
And is it... Yeah, do you want to say more?
No, I just want to indicate that it's negative shipping balances that have been there from 2016. So it's just been climbing over the years.
Yes, indeed. And what we understand then is that as that money has been climbing, as you say, since 2016, the city of Joburg has had to fund City Power's operations to shore up that shortfall.
Yeah, so let me clarify something. City Power is a 100% municipal-owned entity. So the shareholder is City of Johannesburg. So what happens is City of Johannesburg makes decisions in terms of what gets allocated to City Power on a year-on-year basis. But over and above that, whatever money that City Power makes does not belong to City Power.
Yeah.
So we've got what we call a revenue allocation model, right? So when you pay your bill, there's a formula that the City of Johannesburg has that then determines how much cash actually ends up with City Power. So even if we can collect all the cash in the world, it doesn't mean that we will end up with all the cash at City Power. So there's an allocation that gets to happen.
But the trouble is that you're not collecting all the cash in the world, and that's part of why you have these budget shortfalls that the city then has to plug. Is that essentially why?
100%. But our collection rate currently sits at 97%. Which means that whatever we bill, we chase, we get about 97% of it back, which is actually the highest collection rate at City of Johannesburg. If you compare us with rates and taxes or water or refuse, some are sitting at around 70%, but on electricity we're sitting at about 98%. So the collection rate is quite high. However, there's historical debt. Case in point, for City Power alone, that historical debt sits at about 9 billion rands. In that 9 billion rands, about 2 billion rands of it is government debt, which means Gauteng province, which means national province, who have used the electricity from City Power and have yet to pay for it.
So are you saying then that the vast majority of this 16.3 billion rand is money owed to the utility by various government departments?
That would be the contribution, yes. But another major contribution of the this overdraft, the 16 billion rands, is energy theft, right? So it's not the debt. The debt is one thing, you've used it up and you just became a delinquent, you didn't service your debt. But then we also have a class of customers, and I think that's what actually made me to say I want to come to this interview, because there is a big problem in City of Johannesburg, and we're trying to use any space, any platform that we can get so that we reach out to the communities that we serve so that we can get rid of the illegality that is happening in our communities. Because at City Power, we've got about 400,000 customers. 140,000 customers from the 400,000 customers have breached their meters. So these people are people who are not buying electricity.
Yeah.
So they've breached their meters.
This is illegal connections, yes?
which is illegal connections, or they are buying this electricity from what we refer to as ghost vendors. So they would buy like 100 rands worth of electricity, pay 100 rands, but the electricity that they get is actually a staggering 10,000 rands or something like that. So there's all these criminal elements happening, and unfortunately that cripples our finances. So we've got all sorts of programs to deal with that. We're obviously working with the security cluster. We actually want to influence the law so that you can actually get jailed for bypassing your meter. Because at the moment, what we do is we come, we give you a fine, we disconnect, we leave. But after we leave, you pay somebody else again, you get that done. It's 140,000 customers. We cannot be there all the time. So we're coming up with other means, and we're getting help as well, even from National Treasury, so that we can just switch everybody point blank at this point in time.
News 24 reports that roughly 3 billion rand a year is pumped into City Power to prop up what is called your material decline in financial performance. Without that money being pumped into City Power, would you be able to pay for your liabilities? Would you be able to really be a going concern?
Okay, so I think we've got two separate matters. We've got the misrepresentations from News 24, which I'm not really going to be talking about that. But we've got what I refer to as how do we get City Power to be financially viable. So as I indicated,
just to make sure we are on the same page, because I've now made an assertion, and if I'm wrong, please correct me.
Sure.
The 3 billion rand a year, that figure, is that the amount of money that the city is pumping into City Power to deal with the material decline in financial performance? Is that true?
No, that's not true. That's why I'm saying I think let's clarify what's actually happening.
I'm happy for you to clarify. I just didn't want us to move on, and then I've made an assertion that seems to stand, and you're not happy with it.
Yeah, no, that's not a fact. So what is actually happening is City Power, we incur losses, right? So these losses, we refer to them as, we've got what we call technical losses, and we've got what we call non-technical losses. So on the technical losses, we've made an assumption that we are losing about 9% of the electricity that we buy from Eskom. It doesn't even get to your house. We lose it because our infrastructure is old. So there's overheating on the network and suboptimal designs and all sorts of historical issues that make us lose this 9%. So what that means is we buy electricity from Eskom for about 14 billion rands per annum. Now, in that 14 billion rands, already about 1.4 billion rands of that doesn't even get to us. So we lose it. So that becomes part of those losses.
So how much of the shortfall then does the city give you every year? If it's not 3 billion rand, what is it?
So yes, so we don't get given any other money. What happens is we draw down on the. So City Power was established by a loan from City of Johannesburg way back in the day. So it was a loan of about 600 million rand back in 2000. And we keep on servicing that loan. And at this point in time, we've paid about 2.5 billion rand back to the city on that loan. Then when we've got
so they give you a credit facility every year, is that what you're saying?
So it's been there since 2000, right?
Yeah.
Two facilities. So the one facility is a standard loan. And in this loan, we are paying back, and we've paid back about 2.5 billion rand, and the liability remains at 600 million.
Right.
We're entering all sorts of conversations with the city because from a financial perspective, it doesn't make sense, and it leaves us on a back foot. Then there's the overdraft. So with the overdraft, during winter months, in winter, we buy electricity, say, for about 2 billion rands from Eskom side, but we sell it for like half of that. So we do not get to make the money that we are supposed to make in winter. We compensate for it during summer. So a winter season is about 4 months. So there's close to 5 billion rands worth of electricity that we can't afford from City Power side because the sales are not coming in during those months. And during those months, it's the months where the theft is at its highest because it's winter, but the price is also double. So we buy for like 6 rand per kilowatt hour during those months. We sell it to you for about 3 rands per
Right.
kilowatt hour.
Are you then
So
able to even things out during the summer months? Is that what you're saying?
So we are supposed to then recover during the summer months.
And do you do so?
So there are times that we do recover, there are months that we do recover, and there are months that we don't recover. And the reason why we don't recover is those instances that I'm talking about.
Sure.
The energy theft that is basically happening. But also that price of winter is just too high. That's why we're partnering with City of Johannesburg to get what we call the battery energy storages so that we can bank the cheaper power from Eskom instead of buying the expensive power from Eskom.
Look, we can obviously look into the details of how the transaction is structured, whether it's a loan, whether it's a credit facility, but ultimately what has been reported is that you have this 3 billion rand shortfall every year. Without the city's assistance, you'd be in trouble. Is that true?
No, the figures that are being reported.
What is the figure then?
Correct.
What is the correct figure?
It varies year on year.
Roughly?
So for example, the overdraft of City Power, actually let me just give you the actual numbers. So the overdraft of City Power, because these are numbers that we make public, by the way, there's nothing that is being hidden. If you go onto our website, you'll find us. If you go onto the City of Johannesburg reports, you'll find us. So in 2016, we were sitting at about 1.7 billion. This is 2016. 2018, about 1.2 billion. And the number has been growing by about 1 billion to 1.5 billion on an annual basis, except during the COVID era. That's when we suffered staggering losses, and then that then grew to the 16 billion. So for last year, the number was actually about 4.2 billion. So it varies year on year.
Right.
And what is compounding it is in that money, 5.2 billion is interest because we are borrowing it from City of Johannesburg.
Sure. Yes. How much do government departments owe you as a total, whether it's national or provincial? Is there a figure you can give me?
About 2 billion just for City Power alone. They also owe for water as well, but for City Power alone, about 2 billion.
Does this then suggest, CEO, that for residents who are able to meet their obligations, ultimately they're paying double because they're paying for what they use, but somebody has to cover for what you are not paid?
So the reality of it is that the customers who do not pay us, we then get to switch them off. So we end up saying they shouldn't have electricity. Even government entities, by the way, we actually made the noise of saying, but we cannot obviously cut a hospital, right?
Sure. No, I accept all of that. I'm working with the explanation you gave me that if you're looking at roughly 30% or thereabouts of users out of that 400,000 who are using illegal connections, government departments not paying, any number of factors. For those people who do pay, aren't they paying double because they're having to cover for those who do not, whatever their reason for not doing so?
No, they're not. And I really want to thank the customers that are paying us. And what we are doing is we're looking at all the areas that pay and we're making sure that we stabilize that network. So with the little resources that we have, we then make sure that we stabilize the network in those areas. And our stance is the areas that are not paying, we cannot invest in.
Sorry, ma'am. I really want you to help me out here with this. Because the people who meet their obligations, that's how the city collects its revenue. So whatever facilities it may offer you, it is based on what it gets from ratepayers. When there are people who do not pay and the city offers you some kind of facility, some lifeline, that money ultimately is coming from those who do pay. Am I wrong in thinking that way?
Not necessarily. You must remember that, however, there is National Treasury grant that also comes through.
Sure, but it obviously doesn't cover everything. That's why we're
Yes.
sitting at 16 billion.
There's other grants that come through. By the way, the 16 billion should have been surpluses, right? It should have
Sure.
been surpluses that the city can then use to go and, I don't know,
I was
have a
just
swimming
hanging
pool
on this
somewhere
point
else.
that my
Yes.
layperson, and I'm a layperson, I don't know how these things work. I'm a layperson. My thinking was, it surely then suggests to me as a layperson, and I'm here to be corrected by you if I'm wrong, that the people who meet their obligations ultimately pay for those who don't.
For City Power, as things stand, no. I do not want to get the customers that are paying to
But the
start
money is
thinking
coming
that
from
they're
the
paying for
ratepayers.
those that don't. Yes, and their money is going back to service them. So their money is going back to service them. So case in point is, if you were paying us 900 rands last year for your basic charges, we have decided not to increase it at all. It remains
Okay.
the same. We are cushioning that, and those are pronouncements that the mayor made. So we are actually cushioning the people who actually pay us to make sure that whatever that they pay us goes back to service them.
All right.
However, the ones that don't pay, we are switching them off.
All right. CEO of City Power, Tshifularo Mashava. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Current events, developing stories,
Tough questions.
your voice making a difference.
This is Breakfast with Bongani Bingwa.